Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording processes is posted in the meeting room. A participant sign-in sheet is available for use by any citizen addressing the council. The presenter shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary, and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Beck.
Here.
Colterman.
Present.
Streisand.
Here.
Camprith.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Hendricks.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Wilkin.
Here.
All right, this evening, first is the consent agenda. It'll be a little bit of different format. Greg, you want to explain?
Yeah, Derek and I continue to work on different items to help with efficiency or everything else. And he was looking through a number of other agendas for other towns and things like that, noted that most of them include their draft minutes and appointments. On the consent agenda, if somebody had an issue with the minutes, needed to request an amendment, wanted to pull an item off, now would be the time to do that. Correct, Kelly?
Yes.
And so you could request any of the items on the consent agenda. Hey, I'd like to pull off number 4. We'll vote on the consent agenda item. You'd pull off number 4. We'd vote on that individually then and have discussion on everything else. But if you're okay with what was on the consent agenda, then everything go in one vote and just move through. We're just trying to be efficient with your time, but if anybody has any issues with it, you can let us know now, or you can shoot us an email afterwards or anything else. So we're just trying to continue to work through things to find efficiencies, but if anybody wants anything pulled, now would be the time.
Move to approve consent agenda.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
The motion and the second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please play the votes.
Voting in favor: Wilkin, Beck, Camprith, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks. 8-0.
All right, item number 1 under public hearings is a 7 o'clock tax increment financing application by SPD Opco LLC for expansion. I believe we have hiding in the corner our TIF attorney, Andrew Willis. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor, council members.
Walk us through.
The application tonight is it's really phase 2 of the PetSource project. So if you recall, just 2019, the redevelopment project for the PetSource really kicked off the rail campus and was approved. Now, when we did that project, when that project was approved, it was really kind of unknown the valuation that was going to occur at the time, and really the size. And so, I guess first, just the reason we're coming with phase 2 is because the applicant has a good problem. They need more space. Their things are growing, and they're doing very well. So they need to expand. When the project was originally approved in 2019, the TIF amount we set a little bit differently than normal because we just really were not sure what the valuation was going to come in at. It was between 15 million, that was the minimum, up to 24 million. So we just really weren't sure that was going to hit. It ended up being right at that 15 million. So it was, we were kind of right on target, but on the low end. So just as we look through the expansion, I like to kind of pose this as phase 2 was kind of, I mean, it was kind of contemplated in the overall growth when we're looking at the value. But the expansion would be, it's another, it's about 105,000 square feet right now, and be up to 175,000 square feet. So not quite double, but they're trying to triple production out there. The way this will work, and again, I'm trying to give you a little lead in before we run through the normal documents. So because this is phase 2 of the project, and you'll see it in the documents, but again, what they will do in order to make this, in order to really implement phase 2, is they're creating a condominium unit on lot 1 that exists out there. So the condominium unit 1 will be the existing building. Everything that's out there, everything that was built, that's a condo unit. The expansion, the proposed expansions, there's really 4 sections. Those become separate condo units, separate legal parcels. It's all 5 PetSource handles that themselves, it's filed with the Register of Deeds, it creates new legal descriptions. Other than that, it doesn't change anything from a building, permitting, zoning, anything like that standpoint. So that's the mechanism that will be done here. And then what that allows you to do is that allows us to file the notice to divide and really start phase 2 at the proper time. So that's what we're, you know, from a I guess the difference in this project versus other projects is that. I would note that this has been through both Planning Commission and CRA, comes approved by CRA and with a recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission. With that introduction, just as far as kind of the unique feature of this, I'll run through the documents as we usually do. The TIP application was submitted into the, and I put, you know, information from the redevelopment plan, so I'm gonna start with the amendment to the redevelopment plan. Again, as I mentioned, this is an expansion of the existing PetSource facility, going from about 105,000 square feet, adding approximately 70,000 square feet. Same production, same processes that are happening, but just an expansion of the manufacturing that exists out there. There will be, as I mentioned, a condominium unit regime set up in place to facilitate the TIF, but other than that, and that will allow for the construction. It doesn't affect the existing building in the phase 1 TIF. The construction cost, having the plan amendment is $55 million. Again, you'll see in the TIF application was a little over, it was about $72 million. That's the equipment in there, the $20 million of equipment in there. So look at about $55 million cost, and estimated valuation here is $10.8 million. And that's bit from the county assessor, and again, that lines up with that $15 million that exists out there on the 105,000 square feet. So another $10.8 million on the expansion. So based on that $10.8 million increase in valuation, it'll yield about $2,773,500 in TIF. They've identified over $3.8 million in TIF eligible costs, very similar to phase 1 as far as the cost they're looking at: grading, site utilities, wastewater treatment, facade, exterior enhancements, some of those typical costs. So again, it looks pretty similar to what we've seen here before, especially in the rail campus, especially with the phase 1 project. When we look through the statutory elements that are required, no public acquisition, disposal. That's where SFD owns this now. From a population density standpoint, it's a commercial project, so we don't really look at that. It's a large expansion, so they're looking at potentially creating up to 80 new jobs. So again, it's a consideration, but that's a good consideration. That's sort of the purpose of what's trying to happen in the rail campus. So we look at that as a positive. No land coverage issues. It's a 15-acre lot. Adding this space fits in just fine. Obviously, the overall redevelopment has been serving the traffic and the street layouts and everything out there. So yes, while this will increase traffic flow, it should not cause any issues. They'll meet all the parking requirements. And again, this is a permitted use. It's at the BP Business Park District with the PUD over top out there, and it's expansion of what exists, and it is a permitted use out there. When we look at the cost-benefit analysis, just very briefly do that. As our base value, we took the land value, and when the condominium will be filed, the county assessor will essentially prorate out that land value. So we've got $192,000 as the base value for phase 2. Again, $10,855,070 is the projected completed valuation, giving us about $10.6 million increment, which works out to be about $185,000 in tax for the tax increment for that 15-year period. That's how we get our $2.7 million in TIF. And again, all eligible uses, all uses we'd expect out there, and again, just kind of everything kind of continuing as what you have seen and what you've approved out there. Cost benefit analysis. Let's see, what do I need to point out particularly? And it's an expansion of jobs, but that sort of serves the purpose out there. That's the goal of the overall rail campus project. This would allow the existing business to expand and help them meet the needs out there, pay for the public infrastructure. Very briefly, I'll go into the redevelopment agreement, and then I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Again, I'll point out the effective date would be January of 2023. So their plan would be to start construction this year. I would have probably partial valuation as of January 1, 2023, but really construction completed, beginning this year, completed next year. The $10.8 million would be the minimum valuation to serve that TIF note, to cover the debt service on the TIF note. And again, it's got the the TIF indebtedness amount authorized would be $2,773,500. They've identified their eligible uses, they've estimated eligible uses exceeding that. And so otherwise it looks very similar. I would note that, I guess the other note I would make is in the legal description. Again, they've created the legals, and we've got the legals set out for this expansion that will ultimately be filed as a condominium with the county, and that will create the units, but that will all be done by redeveloper. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Again, sort of more of the same, so a good thing.
Any questions for Andrew from the council, or comments? If not, then I'll take this opportunity to open up the public comment portion of the public hearing. If anyone from the public wishes to comment on this item, you may do so this time. Please state your name and your address for the record. Welcome.
My name is Ryan Eccleston, 21507 Grover Street, Elkhorn, Nebraska. Mr. Mayor, council members, I am Ryan Eccleston. I'm the acting director of finance for PetSource. I'm here tonight just to say thank you. We are so grateful for the partnership that we've had with the city of Seward, both the council and the citizens at large. We're grateful to be able to have this opportunity to move faster on this project than we expected. I'll reiterate something that Andrew shared, that while the investment you see on the TIF is or the construction costs you see are $55 million, the difference to a proposed or a projected investment of about $75 to $80 million is going to be equipment, and then kind of some of the working capital costs we'll take on top of that. So I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have, and fill in any blanks that there may be.
Any questions from the council? Seeing none, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing no one else, then I will close the public comment portion of this public hearing and return it to Andrew. Did you want to add anything else?
Unless you have any questions.
Unless you have any other questions, we would just move on to item D and E, resolutions.
So the only question I would have is probably more point of clarification, Andrew. With that first phase, we did TIF that, and they did bring that appraisal. Just to be clear on that, this estimated completed project assessed value is just the addition on top of what they already have, correct?
Correct, yeah, so the current valuation's 15 million out there. This is going to be another additional 10 million of value in addition to that.
Okay.
And so, I guess to clarify, the TIF note on it was in the redevelopment agreement for phase one. Again, it was based on the $15 million as the minimum, with a potential for 24 million. But ultimately they've met everything, because the minimum required was the 15 million. So even though it doesn't meet the total amount that we kind of were aspirationally looking at, everything's been met. This will be another 10 million, or 10.8 million on top of it.
Oh.
Greg, do you want to add something?
Yeah, and we mentioned this at the CRA and had a good conversation about it. One of the kind of particulars about PetSource and the TIFing of this project is there's also a considerable amount of personal property that's also in this phase as well that we found in the first one, but we couldn't quantify exactly how it would be categorized out. PetSource by themselves was still the single largest property tax increase of actual funds that came in that were not TIFed last year once they came online. And I believe this one, when it's complete, will do the same. A lot of that's in fixtures and foundations and things that go into the building that don't count as the real property, thus they're not eligible for TIF. And so we get a significant tax increase, which we unfortunately just don't see that and a lot of smaller TIF projects where the entire valuation is eaten up and there's almost nominal amounts of personal property that get taxed. There is considerable amount of personal property taxes in this. And so that was probably the biggest bump to all taxing entities, at least within the city.
So even though, the TIF is a 15-year TIF, so that the increase in evaluation on the real property won't be fully realized until the 15 years are up, we are immediately benefiting from the property taxes of the real property. It's a separate category. So just
Personal property.
Yeah, sorry, personal property, just so that's clear, that there's an immediate benefit, to the city, on that end of it, so. So with that, is there any other questions or comments, otherwise I'll move on to
I have
the,
a question.
yes.
How many phases is a property allowed to have in TIF? And is that through the first application that they're like, we might phase this out 7 different times?
It's, the answer is, I suppose as many. So this is really a separate application, although it was kind of contemplated a little bit at the beginning. And the reason it works is the condominium. So because they are building new buildings and they're creating new legal parcels, that becomes the phasing. So it's effectively a separate project from the community development law, because we have we have a new legal parcel, we are building a new building on that, creating a new tax increment. So it's a phase in this plan, but ultimately it's a separate project for all legal purposes. What you can't do, you couldn't, we file a notice to divide, you couldn't kind of have a separate phase on top of that, because the county assessor divides the taxes for 15 years, if that makes sense.
So you could have, as long as you have room on your property to keep adding on, each time you add on a new building, like in this case, it could be through this condominium, scheme, you would be able to then do another one, and then keep going as long as you have property.
Yeah, it's
To do it
effectively, the condominium creates separate legal parcels. It doesn't change anything from a building permitting, zoning, if you still got your setbacks, you've still got all the, normal zoning issues you have to deal with. But in this case, they will create essentially 5 separate legal parcels, and so therefore you have 5 legal parcels to create TIF on.
And those just become attachments then, because they're not having to go through a replat or anything like that?
Nope, a condominium regime doesn't require city approval at all. It's filed with the Register of Deeds, and that's it.
We have to technically have, for the TIF to be able to apply, you have to have a separate project from the original project. You can't re-TIF basically the
Correct.
same property, and so in theory, I guess you can say we had TIF'd the whole property essentially, but it was the building, and so in order to make the other aspects or additions qualify for TIF, those have to become condominiums for that purpose, and so you just keep adding those on. Otherwise, once you built your initial project, the rest of the property would be disqualified from TIF, and you wouldn't be able to do this.
That's right. Yeah, that's
is that
correct.
fair?
Yeah, and so the entire building that was built, what I'm calling phase 1, that will be, I don't know what their units are, we'll call that unit 1. So then that exists, it has been, the notice to divide was filed in 2020, so base year was 2019, first year of TIF was 20. And so that entire construction, entire increment exists and won't change. And then, so by creating the condominium regime on new bare parcels of the property, you're creating new legal parcels for, it works for TIF, it works for sometimes, changing ownership, but again, it doesn't change anything underlying on the zoning side or the building permitting side.
So Andrew, is it fairly common, like say for instance in a apartment complex development area, where they start with one building and then they decide to add more? Is this kind of thing done in those cases?
Yeah, I would say I've done this.
Here, we did it here with Thomas Cade.
Tom, yep.
That's
Yep.
what I was, that's what I
Yep.
thought I would.
Mhm. And I've done this a fair number of times. The condominium regimes are well, there's multiple reasons you would do it. One is for separate ownership. If you were gonna sell, if you had a building with separate condominiums, I think you wanted to sell those to different owners. But again, you can sell separate buildings on the same parcel. And then a lot of times we'll use it for things like this, just for financing or for TIF.
And so the condominium term really refers to the fact that you are physically joined structure to structure, you don't have a land in between.
And you can have
You
land.
could
in
have
between,
land,
but in
okay.
this case, there won't be.
Right.
There is with a condominium regime, you have separate legal parcels, but there is a connection. There is still a common condominium unit owners association. In this case, PetSource will own them all, so they are, governing themselves, so it's no big deal. But if you have separate owners, it's almost like a homeowners association where they're working together. Especially if you have the same building with no space in between, you're gonna have one insurance policy, for example, and then you're gonna allocate that out. But in this case, with the same owner, doesn't create any issues. But that's how, with a condominium association, there still is always a connection between, there are separate legal parcels, but often there's common areas between them or some common governance through an association.
Are they taxed as separate
Yep,
legal parcels?
separate legal parcels. County assessor will have them listed out as, giving us each a separate parcel ID.
Otherwise, you'd run the problem of your TIF window running out.
Right.
So if you had 15-year TIF, well then in year 3, you do this addition, well now you wouldn't get a full 15
Right.
years. And then 2 years later, you do another addition, you would have 2 years fewer of the TIF. So basically, when you get to the end, you have a much smaller increment that you're working with. Or the period of time is shrunk on you, so.
Correct.
This is a way to basically get around that
Yeah,
constriction.
maximizing the 15-year period.
Yeah. Is that good? Are we good? Everybody good?
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew, for the explanation. We'll move on to item D then. This is consideration of a resolution approving redevelopment plan amendment and adopting a cost benefit analysis for the redevelopment project.
I'll introduce the resolution.
All right, the resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2022-13. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Item E, consideration of a resolution approving the redevelopment plan agreement for a redevelopment project, including the issuance of TIF indebtedness for the redevelopment project and other such actions under the community development law. Would someone like to introduce that resolution?
I'll introduce the resolution.
You be hanging there.
Sorry.
The resolution has been
Seeing if you had to do discussion or anything.
We're past that.
Okay.
The resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2022-14. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
I'll move. Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Thank you, Andrew. Under administrative items, we have approval of Seward 4th of July committee request for annual July 4th festivities. We have a consideration of a street closure permit, as well as consideration of a resolution for parade. Normally, when it comes to typical street closures, I am authorized to close streets. 4th of July is a little different animal because there are so many streets that are closing that I started to request a comprehensive map just so that we could provide that to the fire department as well as the police department, just so that everyone's on the same page on the 4th of July, since some of the streets get closed, may not have been closed the previous year and so on. And the other reason why I wanted to bring that to the council is because I want to make sure the public had an opportunity to review that map, because in some instances we've had businesses on some of those streets. I know one year there was a hair salon that was there on a hair tricks had concerns because a lot of her customers would come in on the 3rd, and we had some street closures planned because the carnival and other activities wanted to set up early. And so we just wanted to make sure that, because it is such a big day for the community, that everyone was on the same page and could have an opportunity to make sure that they're comfortable with what the plan is, and hopefully we have a smooth 4th of July celebration. So that just gives a little bit of background, and of course on the parade, because we cross the highway, we have to have a resolution to submit to the Department of Transportation for that purpose. Greg, did you wanna add anything? Any questions or comments on that?
I will add that the carnival is going to be over by the Civic Center, mainly on their property area right in front there. So that's already been through the Civic Center Commission and approved.
Any other questions or comments? Or entertain a motion?
Second.
We have a motion to approve the street closure permit, item A, and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please sway the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
And then, would anyone like to introduce the resolution for
I'll
the parade?
introduce the resolution.
Alright, the resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2022-15. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Okay, item number 2, acceptance of a master agreement for professional services with Olson Incorporated. Greg?
Yeah, this is an agreement we predominantly work with Olson to generate small items. Those tend to be usually electric, because our predominant electric engineer is Olson. We haven't updated this master agreement in, I think, like 10 years. And so they requested, we have a few work orders coming in, and they requested if we could get an update to the master agreement. So we asked that this come before the council for signature by the mayor. You can see how we generate work orders out of there. Again, usually this is for some of our small scale stuff where we're looking like, hey, we just need some engineering done in regards to setting up this transformer and things like that, that we wouldn't go out for bid services or anything. So just setting those agreements up so we can get those work orders put in and processed correctly. I can answer any other questions you have.
Greg,
Yep.
is there a threshold dollar-wise where we do go out for bids that's kind of already built into the?
It's professional services, so it depends. Again, on electric, we don't have another one, and so we don't go out predominantly because all of our information that's built in, all the gridding, the GIS, that's all saved with Olson. They're the ones that designed it. They did all the planning. We've tried to work with some other ones on the electric side to see if we could bring someone online, but it is considerable cost to start that up because they need all that data. They need all that built into their computer systems and modeling so they can know loading and capacities and things like that. Because we get backed up with Olson, it's like, hey, you're only one, so we're kind of at your beck and call. But so on this one, there's no specific threshold that we do on the electric side. Usually, a lot of that's built in though with your estimates for your larger projects. Like when we do have a full-size transformer, or when we built the substation. We'll put that information in there. When it comes to the other ones, Mike's here. I don't know Mike. Sometimes again it's still on the work order side. It's just passing it around. Usually, who's got the small ones for us are usually survey on the small end. Otherwise, it's going with a project.
Correct. Survey or geotech. There's some specific engineering services. But again, what happens if we're looking specifically to cost is that people will bid fewer hours, and what we really want is the value of the engineering, and that reduces the overall cost of the city in terms of the quality of the project. And so that's a harder evaluation to make, generally made over time. And so we are quite careful of evaluating each and every one of our professional services over time, looking at alternatives. And to some extent, it's trial and error.
Yep.
And so, ones that have done very poorly for us, we don't hand any more work to, and firms that do well for the amount that they bill, that we give them additional.
And sometimes it comes down to, depending on the other ones, we looked at engineering services for the box culvert under Carroll K into Plum Creek. And that one, instead of bidding out cost to engineer it, we said, send us all, it's kind of almost like an RFQ, but informal because it's a small project. We said, send us all the solutions you've done that match this problem. And then take us out and let us see them with you. And so we went on tours with Olson, and we went on tours with JEO, and we went on tours with Shimmer, and they said, here's the locations of these, we'll take you out and show you this and this one to solve this outfall problem. And so we do it like that. It's almost like an RFQ, but again, it's so small, you wouldn't have them make a giant RFQ response book that takes a month to generate, that they can show you in an afternoon for 2 hours. We try to be really balanced. We try to spread them out to the engineering firms that we know, that are familiar sometimes with those items. Again, sometimes they piggyback. So SEH is familiar with engineering East Seward, and we needed some sewer stuff done in relation to that. And so we said, hey, add this to it, have SEH do that one. The really big ones, I mean, Matt and Carl were part of the most recent one where we did RFQ for the wastewater treatment plant, and that's a multi-month process to go through. So we just try to balance it based on your projects, so.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments on item number 2? If not, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Your motion, is there a second?
Second.
Good motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camper, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Okay. Item number 3, consideration of an offer received to purchase land within the commercial rail campus development area. Greg.
This is a request to purchase what essentially is the furthest northeast lot, directly east and northeast of Levander in the rail campus. We received a request from Ironhide Construction for a project that they have a tenant potentially coming in for. And so they're gonna build a building on that they have already taken a look at. This is a purchase for $257,178. $257,178.24. I believe this worked out to $2.40 a square foot. Is that correct? And then it is also contingent upon TIF. We're also going to do an agreement with them, should this be approved, to allow them, with their TIF application, and Andrew ran out of here, but I can say it for him. You're allowed to do certain things ahead of a TIF approval. One of them is you can start doing some site grading and things, site prep. And so we're going to have an agreement with them, if this is approved tonight, that they can do some site prep work. They take the full risk for that. If their TIF isn't approved and this whole thing falls apart, they have to return it to normal at their own cost. Correct, Kelly? So that's kind of the summation of the offer and the project. And so we'll be working with our friends at IHC that did the other 2 buildings down there in the rail campus.
No LB 840,
No LB 840.
and there's contingency on getting the lease signed.
Yes.
How did this fall within the parameters of the limits or the?
You're right in the middle.
threshold we
I think it
gave?
was right in the middle of what you gave Kelly.
Okay.
Where we said our top and bottom were landed right in the middle.
Any other questions or comments for Greg? If not, under A, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camper, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
And item B is the consideration of the ordinance to direct the conveyance of real property to IHC Properties LLC. Any questions or comments, otherwise I ask someone to introduce the ordinance.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Alright. An ordinance to direct the conveyance of real property to IHC Properties LLC, to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form, to provide for a time when this ordinance shall take effect. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2022-5, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense the statutory rule.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camper, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
This is ordinance number 2022-5. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2022-5 be finally passed and adopted. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
I believe this is the only ordinance on tonight's agenda. It's only one final motion to make the ordinance part of the permanent record.
So
The motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Okay, item number 4, amendment to the rules and regulations for Seward cemeteries, updated cemetery foundation requirements. Greg.
Yes, this was a request by the cemetery board to make this adjustment. They found out with the previous language that you see striked out in the proposed rules and regs that somehow the beveled kind of edge of a foundation is ending up just getting slightly out of the pins, and when you push them all together and get a bunch in a row, you get really off kilter at the end. And they were like, we're having a fit with all the foundation layers and monument installers. And so they said, we need to kind of shrink that down, maybe go back to the original. Some of that was due to maintenance issues out there. We were having a lot of issues with maintenance. There's a recommendation by a prior crew that was having maintenance issues getting in between those. The current cemetery board feels like maintenance issues won't be an issue in the future. We have a really good maintenance crew out there right now that does a really good job of getting in and taking care of small details like this. And so this was a recommendation to try and alleviate that foundational issue, scooting itself off center as you further down the line, especially in some of the older areas. So there will be, I'm forewarning you now, there'll be another one coming that they're just re-looking at all their rules and regs again for the year. And they have a few adjustments they want to make, but due to the timeliness of this is the time when monuments get installed, they wanted this done immediately. So they did have a special meeting just for this change, and it was approved unanimously by the cemetery board.
Any questions or comments from the council?
maybe it's a typo in our packet, but the last sentence has the foundation is not to exceed the size of the grave space or fund from pin to pin. Is that the run from pin
It
to
says
pin?
run on.
Mine says run.
Okay, mine says fun on it, but,
Old version.
okay. Downloaded it on Saturday.
Well, you're
You have no idea how much
you're
fun.
behind.
There's lots of fun out there doing this. Any other
Kudos to you for
questions or
catching
comments?
it.
If not, I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Okay, item 5, update on progress for restricting trucks on East Seward and East Jackson between North Columbia Avenue and Lindell Avenue. Great.
I will tell you that the 30-day marathon that we ran through to try and get you guys as much information as we could at the last meeting curtailed a lot of other items. So you'll note in my admin report all of the stuff that we have in there that we had to work on. And so we had a lot on the wastewater treatment plant, other stuff. And so Mike Onaby did some due diligence to try and do some research on what other communities are doing in regards to signing and properly posting in municipal areas for truck routes. One of the random things we came across, I think was in Norfolk, was that they actually learned that they needed to do the opposite for some reason. And that they needed to designate very specific truck routes and then mark those and then enforce it everywhere else. It seems counterintuitive, but they said they were having an enforcement issue with the signage. And so we just wanted to investigate, so we have a call into them that we put in actually late last week to try and just ask about how that materialized and what was going on with truck traffic they were seeing. Ultimately, I think we're still gonna recommend signing something specific to East Seward when we make our recommendation. But it may benefit other areas when we talked about the creep that this is gonna cause. If we can do something where we specifically designate truck routes like we did with the truck around the city, that may give us the ability to guide these even better because we have designated truck routes through the whole town, specific, probably the highways, but you may consider Columbia just because it carries more traffic, or Hillcrest or something, 14th Street going into the. So we may take a look at that and find that that may be a better route for the creek and for the other issues. And so we've been researching into that, but Mike pulled a bunch of data and files into our share and user drive that we're working on. So we're working through that, but again, we also had a bunch of other stuff that we had put off that we had to get caught back up on, and so we couldn't just devote a ton of time to that. In the meantime, we have the item that comes up next, but I can answer any specific questions. And I also heard some comments and things from the neighborhood over there in the meantime on trucks and signage and things like that. So that's what's going on with truck routes.
So you're basically saying it might make more sense to have fewer signs that designate where trucks are permissible rather than signing every other street that you can't have a truck.
Because it may get to be a lot of streets because they just keep wandering off, and it may be better, and that may also assist. We just want to know, we want to start asking other communities, if you're designating these truck routes, are they getting the GPS information? Is something funneling them that makes them automatically go and stay off the residentials, other than obviously the deliveries and stuff like that, which we'll write into the ordinance, because if a truck needs to go deliver something from a furniture store or whatever else, it has to go where it's supposed to go. So that's where we at, some of the information that we found. Our hope is to try and continue to work that up and get that out in short order. But in the meantime, we have the item that's next. So.
Well, first, is there any questions or comments on the update before we move on to the
Thanks
next
for your
one?
work on it.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, thanks, Mike. He's the one
Thanks, Mike.
able to pick into that.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to next item, which is item 6, consideration of the resolution placing a speed bump on East Seward Street between North Columbia Avenue and Lindell Avenue. Greg.
We received the petition for a speed bump that's included in your packet here. This was organized by Marcia, who's here tonight, predominantly, and they can tell you if they're missing somebody, but it is a lot of people that live on that block here. And a few up adjacent there too that also address on the South Columbia and North Columbia. I don't know if that's on North Columbia. Yep. Well, Tom's address is technically on Columbia.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
he owns property.
Yes. So, and so this is included. We met briefly with the traffic committee. We didn't have any specific issues. We talked to Bob. Bob Meyer said he can install it either way. He can do a permanent one, he can do a temporary one. Preference is probably to try the permanent one and see if they're not super expensive. But it'll hold up better. We don't want to find out that everybody's hitting it and then the temporary one gets broken off. We'll probably have a different plan for snow removal. Sometimes they're bringing a motor grader down there. I don't know if they'll want to take the motor grader down there. It's a little bit more work to get that blade up than it is for a truck and salt and sand to just lift that up. It'll obviously be signed, so they'll know roughly where it is. We'll place it down towards the bottom of the hill in the concrete portion. There's a good run up of how far, Mike? Is that concrete run up?
I don't have a good number on
Okay.
that.
It's pretty far. It's
It
far enough
is.
away from the intersection that it's not like a launching pad to launch you into the intersection, which you would not put a speed bump there. It's far enough back, but it'll probably be just off of the brick, and then you'll have a speed bump there. So, and it'll be signed accordingly.
Greg, one thing I did notice, but it's not as many households as you think because a lot of them husband and wife signs. So it's a dual signature for the same house if you look at the petition. Just, but I'm in favor regardless.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
Only one, not one at the top and one at the bottom.
We can put it on the brick. We just
So I would say let's go incremental, let's do the one, see what the effect is, and then we'll all regroup. So-
I just noticed from like the middle school, you go over the first one, then it's like take off, and then you stop for the second one, and so I just didn't want it to be like balls to the wall down the hill, and then boom, speed bump, stop, and then go over the bridge, and then over the bridge, speed bump, and then haul butt up. You know, like it's not really solving you guys' problem.
Once they get
It's-
past it, they'll launch.
Yeah, so I just didn't know if there was one to kind of maybe go in the middle of that so that you make it, instead of doing it at the bottom of the hill, that you just do it right in the middle of the street, so that it slows your traffic consistently up and down.
I wanna speak to the neighbors, but one of the requests was just try not to interrupt the bricks. That's one of their predominant requests in this whole thing, all the way back to July of last year, was anything that we put in out there, the hope is not to interfere with the bricks.
And I think the bricks acted like a natural slowing down because.
Cause they're shaking your bolts out.
Maybe not. I guess it depends on your
Not
car.
that I've driven
Some
there.
cars are shaking apart.
And the
but-
Not
pothole
because I'm the one
surges
that's
that
doing
purpose
it.
too.
And for the safety aspect of it, you'd want it to recess down east a little bit, because you don't want people basically stopping on Columbia to slow down for the speed bumps, so you want it recessed down a little bit, so they're
Yep.
not,
We wouldn't put it right up at the
Yeah.
stop sign or anything.
we don't have an issue of a wreck there.
This one's designated tonight though, down at the bottom on the concrete portion before the intersection, so.
When we are monitoring this, do we have any speed numbers on traffic counts?
They don't sense speed, correct?
Correct.
Give it a shot and keep us posted.
Yeah,
Do we,
yeah.
do we have any concern about the precedent if this sets all over the rest of the community?
And then for wintertime, you know, Bob said that they could remove the speed bump in the winter if they,
That's the temporary one. I think Bob's preference is to try and do, we'll do either one. We're not gonna, I think if you're okay leaving that to our preference, if we find out, cause it's not terribly expensive, it's the cost of concrete to just form it and lay it there. We'll leave it to their preference and how he wants to maintain that. If he says, I think it's easier for me to just lift my blade. We have big signage up. We'll know when we're getting close to it. Lift the blade, go over it, come back down. Or push it with a smaller truck. The other thing is Bob is, in the last year or two, he didn't use it this year because we didn't make snow. But we had a smaller truck that we also have an attachment to that's pretty powerful. And we've used that to clean up really small things. We may go down there and take care of the speed bump with that as a follow-up.
Williamsburg, wherever that is, like 33rd and Old Cheney, back behind there, they have a walkway, and they do the longer speed bumps as opposed to like the shorter, higher ones, and those seem to work out a little bit better. Just a suggestion as far as the size.
you mean they're south of Hy-Vee?
Yeah, it's like
I know
as you're
between-
going to like the mall or whatever.
Yeah.
They just have longer ones as opposed to short, so that you're not like, you know,
As you bring up the middle school, like, that's
they're horrible.
That's abhorrent. Like,
They're-
if we have anything close to that, that would be a standstill.
So if you just looked at like a slow ride as opposed to a
Kinda.
big ride,
I feel like
especially
I
coming
know
to the
what,
bottom of the
I
hill.
feel like knowing what vehicles you drive because I see you every
I
morning.
know. and I've
Going
got-
over it.
I know,
Could
and
be
I've got
waving
a
at
little
each other.
one that I literally am gonna get run into because somebody's not understanding that I have to slowly go over it, otherwise I will bottom out my car. Where my truck, I'm like, psh. So it's just putting into consideration the
Okay.
difference in vehicles.
Mike can work with Bob on it, on the design, and
Thanks,
see what we
Mike.
can come up with.
Sure.
My hope is we don't do it 6 times. Like
Yeah.
that
And
didn't
then
work.
we
No,
can paint pink and have a little glitter at the bottom of it, so like it reflects and everything like that too. I mean,
it might be Goldilocks. It might be
Okay.
this one's too hard, this one's too soft, this one's just right.
yeah. Well,
So, we'll try our best.
John, do you wanna add something?
No, I think, I have a concern that we're gonna set a precedent all over the community with this.
When I brought it up on the street where I live, when my daughter was 5 years old, I was told no. Because of just what John said. And if anybody's seen high school get out at 3 or 3:30 and drive down Fifth Street past my house, 3 blocks straight to Hillcrest, you know, that's what I was told 25 years ago. And that's why I'm gonna vote no. And I'll explain myself. But, yeah, they'd be all over town if, that's what I think.
Yeah, and didn't we have this discussion with the Shoal Creek edition?
I was 8th Street, the park.
I think
Yeah,
Shoal
I just
Creek,
don't know where you'd
There was concerns
stop.
about putting speed bumps in there at that time too.
I know on 8th Street the residents didn't want it because we proposed it as a solution to their issue over there, and what we heard back was, no, we're good. We don't need a speed bump. So, There is nothing, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no precedent or anything that was said that you can or can't do it. It really comes down to the council's
Preference
on, yeah.
each individual situation, case
Yep.
by case basis.
Or setting the precedent. That makes the same too, but there's nothing that we know of in ordinance or otherwise that I ever run across that would limit your ability to do this or to just deny them all and say, we don't wanna set the precedent.
Are we good at saying that this is kind of one of the short-term solutions until we can get the long-term extra roads or something like that? So, I mean, this is kind of the short-term fix for right now.
Yeah, I mean, it may not even work, I don't know, but there's gotta be something to slow the traffic down.
And keep in mind, this is probably gonna be a petition asking for this. This isn't something that we typically would propose, because I'm not aware, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware of any speed bumps that the city has on city property. Typically, you see them at schools, on the school property side of it. For obvious reasons, they may feel that that's important, but, we do share the concern of where do you, how do you tell the first neighborhood yes, and then tell the next neighborhood no, or in your case, tell you no, and then yes, and then no. But again, that's a policy decision for the council to decide if you're concerned about setting that precedent or not. But I think it's a legitimate concern, just because we don't necessarily wanna have speed bumps on every residential street that might request it. But again, this is a distinguishable, request, and it's up to the council on how you wanna handle that. Any other questions or comments? Did you wanna speak on this, or? You had asked earlier.
I guess I'd like to say that you could come and sit on my porch any morning from about 6:30 to 8 o'clock, and you'll know what I'm talking about, because it's pretty ridiculous. The only thing that is helping to slow the traffic down at the current moment is when we have some vehicles parked out on the street. That's really the only thing that slows the vehicle down. Over the winter months, there basically is no parking on that street because of the emergency route. So there's definitely an increase at that time, because you have traffic speeding both ways, because there's nothing to slow them down coming down the hill if anybody parked on the side, so. We just would like to find something, and especially with the increase of traffic that will happen with the new development, because I'm sure that's gonna happen long before a north-south road ever gets installed. So that's why we are requesting something like this, because it's really a lot of traffic going up and down that street. So we would really appreciate some deep consideration.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Joe
I
would
was,
like to